Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kiri, and I work at the University of Manchester. I'm delighted to have here with me today Aste from the University of Bath to give you a presentation on how to articulate your motivations in the recruitment process. This session is part of our Asia Careers Insight series taking place throughout the month of March. So please have a look in the handout section where you can download the full schedule and sign up to more events coming up in the next following weeks. So without any further delay, I'd like to thank Esther for joining us today and hand over to her for her presentation. We'll be taking all questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kiri. Thanks, everyone. Hang on just one second. I'm just going to take off my camera. Here we go. Thanks, everyone, for coming to this session today. My name is Aste, and I'm a careers advisor at University of Bath. And today's session is, as Kiri said, thank you very much, Kiri, for organising and everything today, articulating your motivations in the recruitment process. So yeah, I just want to wish you very welcome. So I'm going to talk for about 20-25 minutes. And as Kiri said, there will be a Q&A at the end. So feel free to ask questions now, but we won't get to them before the end of the session. So the aims and objectives today is really explore why it is important to articulate your motivations in your application and in the recruitment process. And hopefully by the end, I've increased your confidence a little bit in how to do this, particularly in application and in an interview. And I'll also share, of course, some further resources and tips with you. So why do you want to work for us? Well, that's a question that I pretty much have had in every interview I've been to. And it's also a typical question that they ask in online application forms. And even in a cover letter, you usually have to have a paragraph of why the company. So one of the reasons why I'm delivering this session today is because when I've asked this question in appointments or maybe practice interviews with students, sometimes students only kind of focus on themselves. So they talk about the reasons why they are suitable for the jobs, so the skills and the experiences that they have, which is all good. However, the employer usually also wants you to show motivation for them. So to stand out at an interview then, it's important not only to talk about what you're suitable for the job, but why you're applying for that employer above all other employers. So that's what I'm focusing on today. So how can you kind of research, prepare, and also articulate your motivations with regards to applying for specific companies? So why do you want to work for us is one question you can get. However, there's different varieties of the same question. So things like, what made you apply to this role? What are the day-to-day priorities of the role as far as you're aware? Who do you think are our main competitors and how are we different to them? So those kind of questions is all about your understanding of the company and the role. So why do employers ask this question then? Well, they want to clarify generally what you know and understand about the company, about the job role, and about the sector as well sometimes. Reveal awareness as much as possible about the company and the sector. And they want to see if your personal motivation align with what they're looking for. So if you have like a personal connection or personal motivation that is unique and connects you to the company. So really, they want to see evidence of research, knowledge, and awareness about the role and company, and a self-awareness of why you are kind of connecting the dots and applying to this role. Obviously, this may differ a little bit from company to company, and I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. And sometimes you can't find that in much information about the company either. But I'll get back to that a little bit further on. So I have some employer feedback here that shows how important this is to prepare and use time on. So this is from a University of Bristol leaflet, Work in China and Hong Kong, I think from last year. And this was based on reports and interviews that were done with employers. So this is kind of based on UK educated graduates going home to their own country, but it would also be relevant for people that are not going home but to other countries. So employers often state that UK educated graduates have often less awareness of employers and sectors than home educated applicants. To be at a competitive advantage, students in the UK are advised to keep in touch with employers at home, follow company and sector news, and continue to network with employers and industries they're interested in. So it just shows you, you may have 1 year in the UK, you may have 4, maybe more years in the UK, but you will kind of lose touch what's happening in your own kind of labour market. So even if you're going home or even if you're going to a different country, it's important while you're studying in the UK to keep in touch with the labour market, try and figure out what's happening there, any sector news, follow companies, follow industries as much as possible. And this will make it so much easier for you to kind of show motivation, for example, in an interview or an application process later. I also have a comment from Morgan Stanley, which I thought was interesting. So 35% of applicants fall out with the application process at the screening stage. This is due largely to poor cover letters. It is very common to get cover letters which explain the CV and it's not what they're looking for. We need to see a passion and interest in Morgan Stanley specifically and some indication that some research have been made. So this kind of goes back to my point a little bit about sometimes in applications, CVs or interviews, we talk more about ourselves, our CV, and then forget to also focus on why you're interested and motivated to work for that employer. And this clearly kind of says how important that is. So what if you don't know why you're applying to the company? So in appointments or practice interviews, when I talk about kind of motivation, why do you want to work for us? I do get a lot of students who say that they just apply for companies because maybe it's a big company name or they thought the job role sounded interesting, but they're not really sure why they're applying to the company. So it's more, you know, when students send, if you send loads and loads of applications out there and don't really spend time on thinking, reflecting and researching on companies and why you're interested in them, you're probably not going to get selected for the next stage of the process. So to be able to stand out, you do need to do a little bit of research and prep, and then also reflect on what you found to find like a personal kind of unique connection to that company, which you can use in an application or an interview. So the following slides will give you a few suggestions on how to do that. So how to answer why do you want to work for us? Well, there's 4 tips there, which I'll go into a little bit more in depth. So it's of course, research company website, potentially look at social media, networking, which I think is key, and also using databases in your research. So research company website. Well, I think that is one thing that those students do, but I'm not just talking about a 30 seconds kind of skim read through. If you're really serious about working for a company, you'd like to know a little bit more. So, for example, international or multinational companies generally have a set of values that they want the employees to have or the company kind of show. When I talk about values, I'm talking about things like respect, integrity, innovation, collaboration, leadership. They can differ slightly from company to company, and also what they mean for a company will differ. So it's important to read through this. Some companies actually have value-based interviews. So the whole interview is based on values. Therefore, answering why you want to work for us, seeing what values connects with you personally or motivates you, may be a good strategy for answering that question. You may also find other information on the company website, such as annual reports, which can give you lots of good data or information about past projects. You may be able to read about current projects or company achievements or maybe news. So all of this, you may find actually that's something that you're really interested in. And this again could be something to talk about when you actually go for an interview, for example. one insider tips, although this just kind of exists in maybe larger companies or multinational companies again, is looking at their graduate career pages and videos, because sometimes there may be videos of recently employed graduates, there might be videos of CEOs or senior managers in the company, and they might be saying things about the company culture, about the job, about the company, which may be really resonant with you and that you find motivating. So that is just a couple of things that you can do through the company website. And yes, sadly, some companies, smaller companies, and also big companies may not have much information on their website. And then I would say that the following kind of tips may suit better then. So social media is another one. So big companies, but also smaller companies, a lot of the times will talk about their current plans, their current achievements, current projects, I don't know, current values or anything like that through different social media platforms. And of course, this will change from country to country. But I always say to people that if they can't find that much information on the company webpage, to really see if the company has a social media presence and have a look there. Because it may be things there, whether it's about sustainability, whether it's about like KPMG China here, it's about women in technology. That's maybe resonance with you personally, and that's something that you may want to bring up at an interview, for example. But I think what's most important, and I know you've had a few sessions on this already, so hopefully I won't repeat myself for you, is networking. Because you can read, you can research, but actually talking to people that work in the company that you're interested in, that may really, easily get or reflect then on your motivations or why you're actually interested in that company. So how do you do this then? Well, there's a couple of different things you can do that. So obviously, Asia Careers Insights area is a great way of not only connect with employers, but also potentially follow up with the employers later on, maybe through LinkedIn, or maybe ask if they want to do a Zoom call or something like that, if possible. It's not always possible, I know. But this is a great way of learning more about companies and find something that really, motivates you and interests you. So it could be career fairs, maybe even different conferences. So of course, the first step for this is to check your career service events board and see what's going on. In different countries as well, there may be face-to-face or virtual events that are going on. So maybe check your Chamber of Commerce. There may be some professional bodies in different countries that put on events with different employers. So there's different areas, not only where you can find maybe out more about specific employers, but I talked earlier as well about finding that motivation for the sector as well, and actually checking out other events may also give you a real insight into different sector that not only motivates you to apply for certain companies, but also definitely make you stand out in the application process. Last thing is asking your tutors if there's certain areas that you're interested in and you know that your tutor maybe know more of that. They may have some ideas of events that are coming up that you maybe not hear otherwise. It's always good to kind of ask around. And I guess that comes to my kind of, the biggest thing that I think you can do, and I've done this and it has really inspired me, is online networking. So using the LinkedIn alumni tool, and I think that you've been told about this several times in workshops, but the LinkedIn alumni tool is brilliant. You look up your own university on LinkedIn. I have a screenshot of it actually in the next slide. And you can then find and see if there's alumni that are working in the company that you're looking for, or working in a job role which is similar to what you're applying for, or even search for alumni that work in different countries or cities around the world, so you can kind of get an insight into how it's working, how it is to live there as well. Another thing, of course, is that your own university may have an alumni networking tool as well. So University of Bath have something called Bath Connection. So if you don't know if your university has this, then definitely go and ask your career service. But yeah, I've known people or know alumni or students that have been successful at interviews because they've taken the extra step to reach out to an alumni and then just said, you know, can I have a chat with you? Can we have a Zoom chat, for example, and ask for, you know, the company culture, any insider tips for interviews, or anything like that. And I heard from several alumni that that has really been successful. So something for you to try. This is a screenshot of University of Bath alumni tool. So I just looked up University of Bath on my own LinkedIn, and on the home page, there's a menu bar, there's circle around there on alumni. And as you can see, I have access to 90,000 alumni, and that would be similar to other universities as well. So just want to recommend trying it out and think about all the different possibilities that you can find out through it. Last as well, if you want to do it a little bit in depth, and this is maybe more after you've really realized that this is a company you're really motivated to work for, you found, you know, maybe some campaigns you're interested in, then you can also use databases in your research. This is more in-depth research. So there's a few databases mentioned here, like Marketline or Nexus. And through these, not only can you get company reports, but you can get industry and sector reports and analysis. You can get SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. And Nexus is a database where you can look up a company and actually get all the recent news of what's happening in that company. So actually doing this in-depth research will definitely make you stand out in an interview. Most universities have access to these. If you're not sure yourself, then go back to the career service and ask. So how do you know what to say then? So we've gone through all the things that you can do. So researching company websites, you know, social media, online networking, library databases. Well, how do you know what to kind of say? Well, what I always say is it's easier to remember, to be honest, and it's easier to talk about something that you personally have found motivating and interesting. So if there's a certain campaign that you find really interesting, or maybe they have a certain value that really connects with you, or maybe they have a policy or a project or anything like that really resonates with you, that might be one of the best things to choose to talk about. Of course, it needs to be relevant to the job role and the company, or not the company, because of course it's relevant, but relevant to what you're applying to, so the job role. But aligning your personal motivation with what you've found out about the company, so through the research that you've done, will help you stand out at an interview. Be prepared, because if you start talking about a campaign or a recent news items that you found motivating or interesting about the company, and that may be why you want to work there, they may ask you more questions about it. So you need to remember what you've read. So don't just quote anything and not be prepared for it. So that's just a tip, really. So yeah, so I kind of talked about this a little bit already then. So what to do? So it's what to focus on then when you want to answer why do you want to work for us. So it may be interesting projects or campaigns. It may be values. It may be what you heard from an alumni or an employee at an event. So it's up to you how much research you want to do or the type of direction you want to take. One thing I want to say is be detailed in your answer. I'm not talking about name calling or anything like that, but I've heard quite a few times with regards to, for example, people say, I'm really interested in working for your company because I heard you have a great company culture, for example. But they don't go into what that company culture was or what that person said that made them interested in the company. Or they may say things like, I'm interested in working for your company because I really agree with your value creativity. I'm very creative myself, but then go into what creativity means for them and how it connects with the company. So just be more detailed. I have a couple of examples for you from my own experience working with students. So one of the ones I remember clearly was an international student. She was applying for L'Oreal in a marketing role. And in her cover letter, she had really highlighted a marketing campaign that she thought was really good. And she'd actually gone extra lengths to research that campaign, talk to people that work in L'Oreal about that campaign. And you could really see that, that was the main reason why she wanted to work there. And I thought that was really unique and really, really interesting as well. I've also worked with students who really wanted to work for a company that did good locally, so did community development, for example, or had community projects, or just had a real presence in the local community, and that was one of the main reasons they wanted to apply for it. So it's about kind of really researching the company and finding that kind of personal connection as well, because that makes it easier for you in the end. So what not to do? Well, I talked about being too vague in your answer, so avoid that. I also have seen students kind of summarizing data or stats they have seen from the prompt page of a website. Although that is impressive with regards to memorization, it usually sounds too rehearsed or too robotic. So you may want to, be slightly more natural in your response. And put away kind of focus on finding any graduate job. So you don't want to say that you are applying for the job because you want to work in an international company and because you like marketing. So that could be almost any graduate job out there. So you need to be more specific. And, as I said earlier, don't just talk about you, but also talk about the company as well. So one of the things I just wanted to mention as well, which I haven't talked that much about, is that of course there are cultural differences as well in how you may answer why do you want to work for us. So that is something to really bear in mind. So for example, international versus national company. So I talked about values before. So for an international, multinational company, they may have lots of people from many different countries working in the company. And they may have a set of values like innovation, entrepreneurship, creativity, proactivity, that type of thing, which maybe in a smaller national company where you are expected maybe to start at the bottom and work your way up. Yes, so actually talking about innovation and entrepreneurship may not be as welcome there as an international company, for example. Obviously, that differs from company to company, but that shows how important it is to research different companies and understand, what they're looking for in a candidate. Also, things like body language and voice as well, and you probably know this already, but things like eye contact, direct eye contact may not be as respectful in some countries compared to others. Hand gestures, speaking loudly, for example, or versus speaking soft. So there are differences from different countries and also different companies that you need to be aware of. I'm not an expert in it. I wish I was. If I was, I could, I wish I kind of could talk to you about every country around the world. But it is ways of you finding out about this. So again, connecting with alumni, for example, on LinkedIn, and ask them about sort of business etiquette for interviews. What should you avoid in an interview, for example. And for personal experience, I've worked in different countries around the world as well. And there usually are kind of job boards, websites, maybe LinkedIn groups, for example, or other social media groups where, especially if you go into a country you're not really sure about, or haven't been to, or you're not sure about the kind of business interview etiquette, where you can ask questions and people can support you in that as well. And I put a blog there because I found that it's quite general, but it just gives you a few ideas about what can be different in a job interview and just being aware of that really before you go in. So that's, I guess, it's for you guys who's not going home but potentially going to a different country, and just being aware of the differences. So I've come to an end now. I don't want to talk too much. So there's a few resources here that you may want to look at. So we have a couple of blogs on our University of Bath careers blog. So you can just Google University of Bath careers blog and search for those titles about how to answer why do you want to work for us, and also researching employers before an interview, which talks more about, a few of the things that I mentioned today. There's also a great video there, which how to answer. Why do you want to work for us? It gives you how to not to do it and then how to do it. So it's quite funny and formal, and yeah, a great little video. But obviously, your own career service portal will have lots of information and great resources. So definitely go back to them as well if you need any further advice. And I think that was me. So I think I've talked for about, yeah, 25 minutes or so. So that was on the spot. But yeah, I hope that was useful for you guys to really think through. And I'll open up for questions.
Thank you, Aste. That was fantastic. And we've already had a couple of questions come through, but just to encourage everyone, please do send your questions through now and we'll be happy to answer them. One student specifically is very keen to hear back from you, Aste, in the future as well. Like they're wondering if you work with students outside from the University of Bath and if they can connect with you. So I think that's the highest forms of like compliments that you can
Oh,
receive.
thank you.
So one of the questions we received is that you've touched a little bit on networking and how students can go about it. Um, do you have any advice for students who might feel they're introverted and how they can overcome any fear or anxiety they have with connecting with new contacts?
Yeah, so I'm an introvert myself actually, and networking doesn't come really usual to me. But I've actually said to people that for me, online networking is easier because you can find an alumni through LinkedIn, for example, and then click on connect. And I always say add a note. I think it's about 400 characters. Saying things like saying something positive about the person, or I saw you at an event. Employer event, Asia Careers Insight Week, or we're the alumni of the same university, for example, and I've just seen your LinkedIn profile and your career story or what you've done in your career is so exciting. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? They may not answer you back, but if it's alumni of the same university, they're more likely to. And then, you can then, if you have a list of questions, then if they come back saying, yes, that's perfect, then you actually, you don't need to kind of see them face to face. You can just send an email. I would suggest though, and I know it's difficult, but maybe take that step to say, can we have a coffee chat over Zoom, for example, and maybe see if, the more you do that, the easier it's going to be. But I do kind of say to start with alumni first, just because you have something in common and easier to start a chat and it feels maybe a little bit less nerve-wracking. And after you've done that a few times, then maybe try it with an employer, which is a little bit more formal. But yeah, maybe trying it out in almost a safe space first.
I will definitely agree. I think it helps so much to build rapport if you establish like a common ground with someone. And most alumni will be delighted to hear back from, graduates who've been to their own university as them. And they might even ask you questions about, how is the university now? What buildings are still there? If you've got like still some professors around. So do use that as an in. It's definitely a very valuable way. And, it all comes down to their own availability and time, but do give it a go. It's not uncommon for people to do that on LinkedIn, so don't feel like you cannot do it. Which brings me.
Oh,
Sorry, go on.
sorry, can I just add something? I actually spoke to an alumni, this was in the UK, but she was working in a grad scheme here. And she was saying that her line manager told her to check emails from students that were interested in work for that company. And it was a part of their job to respond and have virtual chats with them because that was the type of students they wanted to work for their company. So it just shows that this is common.
Yeah, it's a great way to increase your visibility and just making your name a little bit more memorable. It won't get you the job, but I think it will just sort of like put you a little step ahead. So you've mentioned alumni, which I think brings me nicely to my next request. Quite a few of the students did not know about the alumni search on LinkedIn. Could we perhaps like do a bit of a quick demonstration now to show them how to filter alumni by location or by sector, perhaps? I'm more than happy to share my own screen if you will prefer, and
Yeah,
you can talk me through it.
yeah, that'd
So
be fun.
let me just get presenter rights back and share my own screen.
So hopefully it's the same way at every university. I think it is. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so I will go into my LinkedIn, and I actually
Yeah.
do have it bookmarked there to go directly into the University of Manchester what's it called, like account there, because I do use this function a lot. But I think as Aste said, first step is you look up your university. Is that correct?
Yeah, look at the university, or if you have a LinkedIn profile, you're already a student of that university, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, so
So
you look
yeah,
up
I
your
think
university, you look for the higher education account there, so you click on it, and then any students in the audience, if you're particularly interested into connecting with alumni from a specific region or sector, do put it in the chat and I'll be able to look them up for you now as a way of demonstrating. But essentially, sorry, I'm just gonna get the panel out of my screen. But as a way of demonstrating, you go up here, you identify alumni, and then you've got this search box here that can help you connect with people. So let me just see if we've had any requests from specific like regions. India is always very popular. So if you want to look up India, so all alumni from India, it will bring you up a list here, and then you can filter down by country or by city perhaps. And then you can also look up at alumni who work for specific companies, or if you go through the filters here, you can see what they've studied, what they do now, the different sectors. So a very valuable tool, as Aste has demonstrated. I'll stop sharing my screen now before I accidentally show any of my LinkedIn messages. And let me just move on to the next question. I hope that has been useful, and I will encourage all of the students to give it a go. And as Aste said, this is available for all universities across the UK and across the world. So do start with your own university and have a look there about how to connect with alumni. So a student is asking, how can we know who to contact in the company? Can we just directly contact the head of the department, or would we be better off contacting someone lower down the chain? What's your recommendation around that?
in what sense? To learn more about the company, or what's the context, I guess?
I think it's possibly, I think it's twofold. One, to discover career opportunities, and then two, to learn more about the organization. Oh, learn about the company and the role the student has specified.
Okay. So that kind of depends on the company itself, really. First, I would say alumni might be the easiest way in, because for an international company, like a big company, it's going to be hard to connect with someone. But usually international companies have their own recruitment team. So you may be able to, if you look at the international company website, there might be a graduate careers page, as I said, and you might be able to connect directly with the recruitment team there. For smaller companies, yeah, it's difficult to say. I would say for a really small company, have a look at someone's LinkedIn profile and see, maybe connect directly with the manager there. To be honest, if it's a really small company, the worst thing that can happen is that they will just say no. You may also, if it's a little bit bigger than a really small company, maybe try and connect with HR first. But yeah, I think it's difficult. I think I would suggest to actually look up people in the company that are working in the job role that you're interested in, and try that first. So it will be a different technique depending on how big the company is and what type of company it is. I don't know if you agree with that, Kiri.
I will agree. I think it depends what you're after. If you are looking to discover what roles are available that might not have been widely advertised, then I will recommend you go on LinkedIn, you look up the company, and then you put in keywords like recruitment, talent acquisition, HR. Those are the people who do all the recruitment and manage the recruitment process. So those are the people who will know what jobs may be coming up or what jobs are currently available. If you're looking at discovering a little bit more about the organization, what the culture is like, what it is like being working in a specific role, then I will go with what Aste said, and I will recommend speaking directly to the people who are doing that job. And I will recommend finding people who have actually gone through the recruitment process recently, because those will be the people that will have the most up-to-date insights for you. It's always very valuable trying to connect with senior people, and I wouldn't discourage anyone from trying that, but then I will only add the caveat that those tend to be the people who do get the most LinkedIn requests and the most requests for help. So their time is much more limited. So you either have to have a very successful elevator speech, or you might just be prepared that the response rate might be lower when it comes to approaching like C-suite people or above. And when I say C-suite, I mean the director of a company or someone quite senior. I had another question here which I've lost. So if you can just give me a quick second to find it again. Oh yeah. Can we like repeat perhaps again and recommend what sort of like opening lines you will use with alumni or anyone else that you might be connecting with on LinkedIn, and perhaps cover a little bit the business etiquette side of things?
So yeah, with regards to online networking and alumni, I guess, I always say have an aim with your connection. So, what is the reasons for wanting to contact this alumni, and show what is a commonality. So that could be, we are both University of Bath alumni, and I just saw you speak at an event, and I thought what you said was really interesting. I'd love to hear more about your current role and organisation. Do you mind if we connect on LinkedIn? Hope to hear from you soon. And that's a kind of an easy way in, really. So just what is the commonality? Say something positive about the other person, whether that is a LinkedIn profile or whether that you saw an event, and then take from there. So that's what I would say. And next step, that's entirely up to you. You can kind of say, do you mind if I send you a few questions, or would it be easier, for example, with a 15-minute virtual coffee chat? I can set that up and just make it easy for the other person. And with alumni, you don't need to be as formal as you would be with an employer, but I would still say to be polite and be professional in your communication. Make sure spelling and grammar is all good, and just make sure that you kind of understand why you're actually connecting with them, and showing that motivation and positivity. Most people love to talk about themselves, so just ask some questions, whether that is through email or not. And business etiquette, with regards to networking, just ask them questions. Just have questions, have prepared questions that you want to know. And as Kiri said earlier, if you have something in common from before, so the university, or you attended the same event, or you're a part of the same LinkedIn group, or whatever that is, bring that up as maybe a starter, because that warms up the conversation a little bit. But yeah, and just listen and be respectful of what they say, and show interest. Those listening skills are extremely important. And also be prepared that they may ask you questions about yourself as well. So that's what I would say about networking, because it's of course it's formal business etiquette with online networking, but you're not supposed to have a sales pitch in online networking. You're supposed to learn more about them, and maybe and about the job role and the job opportunities and so on. And maybe later on, or in another conversation, or towards the end, of course, you can say something about yourself, and they probably have asked, but you're there to kind of learn from them, and be interested and motivated by them first and foremost.
Definitely. I think it's all about the little touches, is, not demanding too much of their time. So it's what Aste said, a 15-minute conversation, how can someone say no to that? But then if you say, can we talk for the whole hour? I think no one has that much time to spare. But also it's be cordial, be polite. Remember that even though it's online, you're not talking to one of your friends. So do put, a certain level of professionalism into it, but then don't let that put you off. Like, it's still a conversation, you're still trying to get someone. It's as if you're trying to make a new friend in a way. So you're trying to get to know them. It's just you're focusing your questions around their work. And then if I can very shamelessly plug our Asia Careers Insight series website, because I think that might be helpful to students, I'll share my screen once again. If you go on our website, and if you look at the how to prepare section here, we have actually outlined a few questions here that you can ask employers either during the session or during a follow-up after you've attended one of the webinars, but also when you connect with them on LinkedIn. So do have a look here, because you might find that, you know, those are good conversation starters for quite a few of you. So I'll just put the link in the chat area as well, and I will encourage you to have a look there if you don't know how to start. That might be useful to all of you. So just to encourage the students to send any additional questions through right now. So one question that we've had, Aste, is a student is worried about not having sufficient work experience in a sector, and how to sort of like articulate their interest in a sector, either before an interview or during an interview, to sort of like make up for the fact that they might have some experience or, you know, some transferable skills, but not directly in the sector they're interested in. What advice would you have for them?
So I don't think you necessarily have to have work experience in the actual sector that you're applying for. So I think some of the suggestions I said earlier, you know, actually research what it is that's interesting for you in that sector, and talk to people that work in that sector or job roles, wherever you're interested in. And then try and kind of think about how that connects with your previous experiences. So for example, you said, you know, transferable skills. And even you might be able to get a little bit of help as well through, you know, online networking, as we said earlier. So I don't think that should stop you from applying at all. A lot of employers actually say sometimes that it's the motivation that they have for that work and why they're interested, or you are interested in that sector and that company and that job role, which is kind of higher prioritized than having a directly relevant skill sometimes. But you need to show that you've done your research before the interview.
Thank you. A bit of a stretching question, I'd say. So I'm really looking forward to your thoughts. The next one is, do you find from your experience that the job description is not always reflective of the sort of like roles, like the day-to-day like responsibilities of the person undertaking the role, and the actual skills requirements? And should students be sort of like cautious of that as well?
That's an interesting question. So I am afraid I don't have any kind of experience with current jobs and that, because it's not really a question that comes up that much with alumni. What I would say generally is that job descriptions change, and it isn't necessarily exactly what you're supposed to do when you apply for the jobs, but very often the skills don't change. So, you know, the teamwork and communication, analytical, you know, digital skills. But yes, the job description may change. And in personal experience, I would say absolutely. And pretty much in every job I've had, my job description have changed, even though, you know, just after I've started working. But the skills are usually the same.
Yeah, I will agree. I think the roles do evolve and you do make them your own. So, you know, you might start being told that you're going to be doing something, and then that's not what you end up doing in the long run after you've been in the position for quite some time. And then I am aware that, you know, employers might occasionally use a little bit of jargon or, like, you know, difficult language in those job descriptions. But then it is a bit of a skill to try to like read through them and understand what the day-to-day responsibilities will be like. Just reading through a question right now. Okay, some companies and their competitors might be offering similar products or services in most cases. How do students approach the question, what makes this company A different from its competitors? And like, how would you recommend students answer this why ask question and bring in, you know, why company A over company B?
Well, I think that's entirely up to you. It's what I said earlier. So yes, some companies will have almost the same values, although the values may mean different things to them. They may have the same product and services. But for example, this is kind of UK based, but some companies have a lot more employee groups or societies, for example, like equality and diversity type societies, or they have like sport things that they do, or they have all these ways of for the employees to work well together, for example. So that could be one. So that could be a personal thing that you find really interesting about them compared to others, or they may have really good staff development opportunities. So obviously you need to go further than what you just read in the job description, but maybe you've spoken to someone and you realize that you can actually work one week here and 1 week there. So therefore they want to apply to them over the others. They may, if you read the news, they may, because I don't know which company does better than others in news, but they may have taken over a project or want to bid on a project over another company, or they are getting really involved with artificial intelligence and technology compared to a competitor. So really, it really depends on you and yeah, why you're interested in that company to find the kind of certain theme to talk about why that company's better than its competitors. So I think, yeah, I think you need to find that kind of personal connection in your research and also do your research as well.
I think that's when you go into the finer details of being able to mention any current projects that an organization is doing, or specifically which products or brands come under like a larger, perhaps multinational organization, how differently they're performing in the stock market, perhaps compared to their competitors, or any pieces of like news that might have like recently come into the news as well. A student has asked, and I'm not quite sure I understand the question, is how can students apply to internships like through LinkedIn? If you can just please clarify if you mean like what the process is like or what the requirements are like, and but you can't find roles on LinkedIn and apply directly by just sharing your LinkedIn profile there. So that's a thing. Also, might have like some recommendations there about how to build a really strong LinkedIn profile, perhaps. What sort of like skills would you say a student needs to add in, or information or experience? Do you have any tips for that?
What I usually say is almost the same as a CV sometimes. So make sure that you have the most relevant and interesting information kind of top of your LinkedIn. So there's a summary bit there, which you talk a little bit about who you are, who your skills are, and what you're looking for. And sometimes they say it's almost like, well, not exactly like, but almost like the two first paragraphs of a cover letter. So, why you and what are you looking for? So why them type of thing. So, it needs to be a good summarization of the skills and experiences you have, and what is your aim with the kind of LinkedIn profile. So are you interested in a certain sector or interested in a certain type of work? And that might be the first thing that they see. And also, make sure that everything is up to date. So a lot of times when you apply for a job, they will check your LinkedIn profile, and if the information is out of date or doesn't fit with your CV, that's not usually great. A professional picture, absolutely. I see less of non-professional pictures now, but a nice picture with that they can see your face. And yeah, and maybe, you can change the title as well. So you can say something like, I think I've seen like an aspiring marketing student looking for internships, or so they can see that straight away. So, and spelling and grammar is important, but it's almost same as a CV. Sometimes you have to tailor it to what you're looking for. It's a little bit more difficult with LinkedIn because you're not tailoring to a job. And of course, things like recommendations. If you've worked before, maybe a colleague, could be volunteering, could be part-time roles, a line manager, and depending on what you apply for, you can also add videos now. So if you've had this is a recording of a presentation I've run, so things like that you can add, or presentations or files. If you're applying for creative things, you can actually add things on the LinkedIn. So it's a little bit bigger than a CV, but really is looking professional, include all the information that you think is relevant for what you're looking for, and yeah, no grammar and spelling errors.
Definitely. So, and just to summarize again, is picture is really important because profiles with pictures tend to receive more views, and then be open about what you're interested in and put it there, because this is how recruiters work. They will look up people based on key sort of like keywords. So if you put there that I'm open for work and I'm looking for something in this and this and this sector, you're more likely to come up in a search by a recruiter and be approached to be offered a job. So a bit of a personal question there for your own personal thoughts, Aste. A student has mentioned how research shows that when women and men look at the job description, women tend to focus a little bit more on the things that they think they're not suitable for or they cannot do, while men tend to focus more on how many of the desirable skills and experience they possess. What are your thoughts on this, and how would you suggest women approach job applications in light of this? Do you have any recommendations or suggestions to any of our female audience today?
I think if you, first of all, I would say actually that might be a really good thing to talk to a careers advisor in an appointment as well, because they might be, give more specific support to you and your skills and what you're looking for. But yeah, I think the research is saying that a woman needs to think that they'd be able to do 100% of all the skills mentioned in the person specification, while men apply even if they've only done 2. So I think it's more to be aware of that research, and also, try and work on your own self-esteem, because I usually say if you think you can hit most of the essential skills, 80% of essential skills, then absolutely go ahead and do it, and apply for that job. Don't automatically think that you can't apply because you don't hit every single point. Yes, there may be some points which are more important than others. Also, if you feel up for it, sometimes you can call someone beforehand and ask more about the job and the candidate they're looking for, to gain an idea of whether these essential criteria is everyone has to hit them or not. It's a difficult one. I'm kind of one of the same people myself, kind of looking at the job spec thinking, oh, I can't do this, but being aware that you can still most likely apply for the role as long as you have the majority of the skills and the essential skills. So I would just go for it, and maybe speak to a careers advisor for a bit more strategies and how to do that.
I think we've all been there then. Just a reminder that usually an employer will list the most important skills they require at the very top. So as long as you feel like you're meeting most of them, the ones that come at the very top, do feel free to put an application forward. You've got nothing to lose. Employers will occasionally receive too many applications and say, well, this person is completely unsuitable, but then you never know who might take a chance on you. But don't and also a word of caution, because I know a lot of the students in the session here will only be making their first steps into the professional world soon, and employers specifically hiring for recent graduates know this and expect that you wouldn't meet all you wouldn't have tons of experience, or you have a 3 pages worth of a CV. So they are aware of this. What they want to see is that you've got transferable skills and that you're willing to learn, you're flexible, you've got a passion for progression, and so on. Just one final question before we wrap up, Aste, is what was the website you mentioned about searching business news? Was it Nexus? A student is trying to clarify.
NEXUS, I believe, is the news database. I have to say, I'm not an expert in these databases. I look at them, but I do so rarely that I forget exactly what they stand for. But yeah, that link that I had in the resources bit at the end also gives you more information about each database. So definitely have a look at that.
And just to remind the students that this session has been recorded, so if you want to revisit the slides to find out more about what Aste has said at the beginning of the session, please do have a look at the recording. I'll be circulating to you later today. So this is all the time we've had today. I'd really like to thank you, Aste, for this fantastic presentation. I've certainly learned loads myself, and I'm sure the students have found it very useful as well, and very insightful. I'd like to remind everyone that we've got more sessions coming up next week as well, so please do sign up for them. And thank you so much for all your engagement today and all your questions that have come through. Any final thoughts from you, Aste, before we close the session?
I just want to say the best of luck to all of you with regards to applying for jobs, internships, online networking, whatever it is. Just go for it, and I just want to wish you all the best.
Wonderful. A happy and positive message for everyone. Thank you so much once again, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.